There's an opportunity for the public to weigh in and have input, and I'm a big believer in that. So that is my role here tonight. We also help organize this meeting and all the details, so if you don't like the cookies, that would be us. In a minute I'm going to introduce Todd, who is our speaker, but before, I believe we do have one city council member here. Stephanie Fortune is in the back. Stephanie is our city councilwoman for District 3, so we appreciate you being here, Stephanie. Thank you. I don't know if there's any other elected officials. If there are, if you could raise your hand. Did not see any, so okay, very good. What we're going to do tonight is about a 30-minute presentation. It's not a long presentation, and then we're going to open it up for questions, answers, and your ideas and your input. And I want to say that's the focus of tonight, is your ideas and your input. So we'll do a 30 minutes presentation that leaves us about an hour or so for that Q&A. We can stay a little bit longer if there's still questions. We can't stay too much after 7:30 because I need to get the school ready for tomorrow's children. So the agenda you see on the next slide, and I've just reviewed. Start with a presentation and then the Q&A, and then we'll talk about next steps at the end. I want to mention that we've handed out a comment form. You can feel free to fill out that comment form, leave it tonight, or send it back in. There's also a QR code for everyone tech savvy that take you to the project website, on the city's website. Same questions are on the online survey as are on the hard copy survey that you have in front of you. There's also an email address up there for city traffic engineering and a phone number if you should have any questions. The PowerPoint you're going to see tonight, we've already put it up on the website, so it is up there if you want to follow along that way or download it later. So that is just a few points of order. I'm not sure the restrooms. Who knows? Allison, do you know where right out front here? Right out front are the restrooms. And please silence your cell phones if you would. Help yourself to the refreshments at any time. So next slide. We were asked about how we promoted this meeting, so I thought, well, let me just put it all out there. These are the various ways that we did promote the meeting. You can see we mailed postcards, e-newsletters. I will say if you sign in and you put your email out on the sign-in form, that's helpful because that's how we will keep you informed with future communications about this project. So please give us your email address so we can keep you informed. We also sent out notices to many organizations and asked if they would forward them out to their constituents, which they have done, which has been helpful. We posted it to the webpage, created a webpage at the city with all the information on there. We also put posters up at the existing gate on Old Ranch Road, posted on nextdoor.com, had several news articles. Thank you to our media for being a good conduit back out. And then there were several other online forums that posted it as well. So that gives you kind of an overview of that. So, what I want to say about this meeting tonight, so as I learned more about this topic, it was pretty clear that it's not easy to define the problem specifically. Everybody has a different view of what the problem is, different perspectives. Everybody here probably has a different way they interact with Old Ranch Road, whether they're a resident or a business owner, or they're a Jeeper, or they just like to drive it. So defining a very specific problem statement was difficult, but I'm hoping we can all agree that what we do agree on is that we care about and want to protect our access, our public spaces, our private spaces, our properties. It's just important that we protect that for our own use as well as the future use. So I reviewed all the comments that have been sent in to date, and there have been several. And you'll see in a minute, I tried to recap with a bulleted list of everything we've heard, but I will say I probably didn't get it all. So that's part of what tonight is to, what we miss, tell us more about what you consider the problem to be. It seemed a common thread, though, broke down to the biggest concern was wildfires. We've experienced that in our community. We know what that's like. And when I looked at all the different comments, it just really, that was the golden thread, I'll call it, of concern about risks for wildfires and activity that causes that risk. So what this meeting tonight is to really present what's going on Old Stage Road, I'm sorry, and ask for your input and your ideas. You are the ones that interface with the road more than anybody and have discussion and dialogue. You know, we set these round tables up specifically because we want you to not only talk to us, but to each other while you're in this meeting. What we're not going to do in the meeting tonight is really solve anything. I'm going to be perfectly transparent about that. We're here to get ideas and recommendations and then come back out. So we want this to be productive. Respectfully productive. So I put together a few meeting protocols, which you've been reading up there. This is an opportunity again for discussion, so as respectful of each other, because your people at your table might have a different opinion, and that's okay. That's part of public engagement, is we all have different opinions. So just be respectful of each other, respectful of the presenters, and anyone who's here representing any organization. Please don't shut out from your seats, because that just can be disruptive. Applauding and booing can be disruptive. I hate that I have to go through this, but I've been to public meetings before where there's booing and applauding, and it slows the meeting down. So we hope you'll be respectful and not do that. Allow the speaker, which will be Todd Frisbee, our city traffic engineer, to get through his whole presentation. It's very short, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And at that point, we'll talk about how to do that, which will basically be raise your hand. We're going to come to you with a microphone so everybody can hear your question and your comment and your idea. So we may not get everything answered tonight because we don't have all the answers. I think no one in this room has all the answers. You may have your answer, but you don't have everybody else's answer. So we'll do our best to answer what we can, and then we're just going to pull all the input together and come back to you at a later date, which we don't know quite when that is yet. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd Frisbee, the city traffic engineer from Colorado Springs.
Good evening, everyone. As Lisa said, I am Todd Frisbee. I'm the city traffic engineer for the city of Colorado Springs. I don't think I need to really tell anybody, show really all of you where we are and what we're talking about, but also, this is just a general map that shows you a section of Old Stage Road, and the square is kind of that hairpin turn that you're all familiar with, where the road changes from dirt to gravel. So I just want to give a little brief overview of what I'm going to just sort of talk through. I'm going to talk a little bit about, sort of summarize some of the comments that we've heard today. We're going to a little bit of background on maintenance agreements, some traffic volume data, and then I'll just sort of close out the presentation with a really brief discussion of the options that we've heard, some of the pros and cons of each of those options. So next slide, please. You know, as Lisa said, we have received a lot of public comment, and it hasn't gone without a day where I haven't received at least one or two emails or a phone call regarding Old Stage Road. So again, as Lisa said, this is sort of the things that we typically heard about how this road is used. Most of you know these things, you know how they're used. They provide access to the national forest. You can travel all the way to Delaware County, Cripple Creek area. There's access to recreational activities in this area. There's also access to government entities and their facilities and equipment up in this area. And as Lisa said, there's also businesses and private residences that use this road on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Some of the things that we've heard regarding sort of the public safety issues, and a few pictures from some of the things that we have observed up there. There's been people who have expressed concerns about, fireworks, campfires, overnight parking, and camping in the area. The late night traffic, vandalism. You could go on. There is a list of concerns that folks have expressed to us. Ironically, the public meeting notice sign is the one right below the 20-mile-per-hour sign, shot up with some paintball. So I thought that was interesting. So next slide. Just a little bit of background. Many of you may already know this, but there's an agreement between El Paso County and the Forest Service to share in maintenance responsibilities and to share sort of control and law enforcement activities in this area. So the gray line, I don't have a pointer, but the gray line that runs along the edge and then sort of cuts over and then goes off the map, that's the Forest Service boundary. The blue line is the section of road that is under El Paso County jurisdiction and law enforcement, and then they have the authority to control and regulate the use of that road. And then the red line, which this is not all of Old City Road, obviously, this, and it's not even all of the county, but the red line is where Forest Service has jurisdiction, and then law enforcement, EPC, El Paso County, that is the Sheriff's Office, and the Forest Service have law enforcement responsibilities. The red, if you look, I have additional maps in the agreement, the red line continues all the way to the teller counter board. Oh, okay. All right, next slide. Okay, well, I'm a traffic engineer, so I can't do a presentation without traffic volumes. So it's just part of my nature. So what we have pulled here is traffic by month, on a weekday and a weekend. And so these are average daily traffic volumes throughout the year, by month, and not surprising, right? I mean, I think you see that on the weekday average traffic is a little bit lower than the weekend. We have, it's peaking here in September-October area. Probably people going out there to see the leaves, the aspens, and then April-May area, get a little bump up during the springtime as well. Next slide, please. And then we got, as traffic engineers, we like to break it down into smaller and smaller chunks. And so this is, hourly volumes, sort of. And I'll just say that this is the average hourly volume. So we just took all the data for the year and sort of, what is the average volume throughout the year at these times? And again, not surprising. I mean, you would see, you'd expect traffic to increase throughout the day and then taper off as you enter the evening hours. I will say that this data is pulled from about a mile from the existing gate. And so you can see there's a little bit of activity in the early morning hours. There is a little peak, normally you expect traffic to decrease throughout the evening. There's a little bit of a bump in the weekend, around 9 or 10. And so I'll let you guys interpret. I won't provide any interpretation of what that little bump means, but I'll let you guys all figure that out and come to your own conclusions with regards to traffic. At this point, I think I'm going to turn it back to Lisa. Next slide. And she's going to talk a little bit about what we've heard today.
Sure. So these are just some of the points that I gleaned from all of the emails and the comments and the letters that were sent in. We asked people, when we put out our first notice, we mentioned a gate. And we did that on purpose because we knew we'd get a good reaction. And gosh, it did. Todd said, if we just say we're looking at options, we might not get people turnout, but if we cite a couple of the options, we might get a better turnout, and we did. So I reviewed all of those comments, and this is some of the feedback that I gleaned from that public's time-activated gate benefits are public safety, less illegal activity, reduces the wildfire risk behavior coming from camping and campfires, gunfire, shooting, dumping, vandalism, drug paraphernalia, graffiti, illegal and underage drug and alcohol abuse, gang activity. And that most bad activity happens between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. It sounds like my mother telling me nothing good happens after midnight. You be home by midnight. And reducing speed at night and also reducing party goers. So next slide. And this is not exhaustive. This is not exhaustive. There are probably many more, and we're hoping to hear that from you tonight. Then we heard concerns about a time-activated gate that Even if only during the late hours of the night and early morning, a gate does restrict access to public land. We heard that quite a bit. We heard concerns about emergency access, evacuation during an emergency. And we'll talk about that a little bit tonight when we talk about some of the details of how a gate might work. Access to Teller County, Cripple Creek and Victor, this would increase commute time. We heard maintaining 24-hour access enables others to experience the forest and up off Old Stage Road, the way it's been experienced in the past, the rich history. We've also heard that a gate would limit access for nighttime activities, legal nighttime activities of photography, sunrise hiking, early morning fishing. Next slide. Then we heard some feedback on other options. So what else could be considered? So we heard increased patrol, police presence, law enforcement or volunteer forces that do have authority. We heard additional signage. As a matter of fact, a couple people submitted their thoughts and ideas of what the sign should say. We heard pave Old Stage Road, that might be a deterrent. We heard install guardrails for safety, public safety. We heard do security sweeps between 9 and 11 p.m. We heard put more cameras up for monitoring and signage from the Cripple Creek side, four-wheel drive vehicle recommended. So a lot of good ideas, and as I said, we took them all in. So next slide. I'm going to turn it back to Todd, and then we'll go through some of those options and what advantages and disadvantages. Again, these are not exhaustive list. So when we get to the Q&A, we want your help in adding more.
All right, thanks, Lisa. And so, yes, so one option that has been discussed or been thrown out there, as Lisa said, is this idea of a gate, of a sort of a time-activated gate. And it would be a gate that would generally, the thought would be generally be open most of the time, but then closed off in the late hour or late evening, early morning hours. Some advantages, obviously, it just comes in terms of just there's an initial upfront cost, some ongoing maintenance, but there isn't this need for sustainable funding as there would be with some other options. It could curtail that undesirable late night activity that we have been talking about. But at the same time, it could be set up to allow sort of non-motorized access for pedestrians, and bicyclists, and visitors, and emergency responders would have the ability to access the gate, open the gate at any time, 24/7. Obviously, some of the challenges is management of access, right? If you had such a system, who gets access from it from the east, right? In those late after hours, so you'd have to manage that. Setting the times. I'm sure we could all disagree. We'd have many opinions on what those times should be if such an option were to move forward. We heard some of the public comment that maybe the gate should be at a different location, further into the forest. And then there's technical challenges with anything electronic, right? There's power. The gate would have to be set up if you were on the west side of the gate, that it would open automatically if it was closed for people who are on the west side of the gate, so they wouldn't be trapped on that side of Old Rancho. And as mentioned, just sort of what kind of system do we use for providing access from the east, and then just general monitoring of that. Okay, I would say, there are advantages, but there are challenges, and a lot of things to work through with this option. Next slide, please. Another option that we've heard a lot about was increased law enforcement presence, right? The advantage is we don't have to worry about access, right? We don't have to worry about the operation of the gate and who manages that. There's lower upfront costs, right? You already have some of the resources in place. You already have those mechanisms to provide law enforcement along the road. The challenges is law enforcement agencies, the Forest Service, you probably well know, they struggle with providing enough officers to provide proper and comprehensive patrolling and enforcement. So providing a sustainable funding source, that is a challenge that has to be overcome. one of the questions to ask is, what is the level of enforcement activity? Is it educational? Is it a public educational officer of some sort that is out there and telling people about the rules and what you can do and what you can't do in certain areas of the road? Or does the law enforcement activity have to be something more? The ability to issue citations, the ability to make arrests. And then obviously we're dealing with a lot of different jurisdictions in this area, and so putting together agreements with regards to jurisdictional responsibilities and whatnot. So that's sort of one big option that we've heard from the public. And then other options, next slide please, are just other ideas. Lisa touched on some of those. New and additional signage along the roadway. You can see, low cost education. If you know signs, generally there's sometimes low compliance. They can become targets as well. But is a way to tell people that this is what you're allowed and not allowed to do along this road. Heard about road improvements, improving safety. Again, finding the funding is another challenge that we'd have to work through. And then the last sort of option we heard, sort of big idea was, what about cameras, right? They're low cost, they can assist law enforcement with establishing timelines. And that's one of the things that I've heard is that they get calls and it takes them so long to respond. Someone will say, it was that guy over there, and they can't establish a timeline to be able to properly provide a citation or to deal with the situation. And then some of the challenges, obviously, with cameras, again, it's technical, right? You got to deal with weather, power, they get dirty, they become targets for vandalism as well. So I think is with that, I forgot one more option. As with any project, there's always, next slide please, there's always just the do nothing option. You're just to leave it as is, and that's, obviously that's easy to implement. There's no cost associated with that. But it just doesn't address some of the concerns and challenges, some of the concerns and issues that we have heard in this process. And so I think with that, we'll turn back to Lisa. She's got a few more statements to make, and then we're going to open up to Q&A.
Great, thank you, Todd. All right, at this point, I'm going to go over, if you could switch to the next slide, just how we're going to do the Q&A. I've got my team here. I want to introduce Allison. Where are you? Raise your hand. There she is, right up front. And Monica is back on the projector in the back. And then Cassandra, where are you? Right here. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is go back and forth on each side of the room. We're going to ask you if you have a question or a comment or an idea, raise your hand, and the ladies will bring the microphone to you. We're going to hold on to the microphone because I don't want to have to clean them after every single use. It just slows everything down. So we ask your patience on that. Gets more people in. Give us your name. If you want to tell who you're with, what your organization, that's great, not necessary. If we've already heard something, we don't have to hear it 5 times, because what Monica's going to be doing, you'll see in a minute, is we're going to put up a Word document. She's going to type in everything that you're saying as you're saying it, so that you can see that we're capturing all your thoughts and ideas. If we don't get to all the questions and comments, as I said before the end of the night, you've got a comment form, you've got the QR code. The team will stay around for a little bit, that you can talk to them at that point. And again, just listen with mutual respect. We're going to have a lot of different ideas tonight, and I think that is perfectly fine. So with that, we're going to take just a 1-minute commercial break while Monica turns off the PowerPoint and puts up the Word document. So talk among yourselves for a second. So we've got Allison over here, we've got Cassandra over there. So please raise your hands, good and high. They'll bring the microphone to you. We'll go back and forth from one side of the room to the other. And be patient with Monica. She's not a professional typist, but she's going to do her best to get the spelling right. When she doesn't get right, we will fix the spelling later. So be patient. All right, let's start over here with Allison. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Michael Chaucy. I was wondering if we have any statistics on exactly what the crimes are and how many have been reported along Old Stage Road. I went to the city website and ran the numbers, the police website, trying to find out if there's a real need for a gate. During the last 10 years on that site, it's reported as 0 crimes for 10 years. So I also contacted Todd Frisbee and asked him for statistics. He said he didn't have any on the site. I know that part of the reason for this is it's in sheriff's jurisdiction, which is county, so I assume no city resources are being used. I did call the sheriff. I asked them how many arrests have been for homeless or undesirables or for other reasons. They're not a part of the city website. So do we have any statistics?
So let me just recap for those who didn't hear. He wanted to know what statistics are there for some of the public safety activity that have gone on up and down Old Stage Road. So.
Great question. I will say I don't have all the specifics, but I know that some of the number, the most common calls to 911 calls are for weapons firing and for traffic incidents. I will say that some of the other statistics will show that I have seen so far, and I'm still working with PD on pulling that data, that the number of calls range anywhere from, over the last 6 to 7 years, anywhere from 30 to 35. And that's in those numbers. And most of them, like I said, are that the weapons and sort of traffic incident calls. So, but I'm still working with PD to try to narrow that down, but that's what I've seen so far.
So still pulling the data, and that's part of this meeting tonight, is pull all this information together, pull a lot of the data that Todd's able to pull from the public safety officials and others, and then pull all that information together and be communicating back out as we move into the coming months. So, Cassie, do you have anyone on that side? Please speak loud and clear.
And I live in the neighborhood of Oklahoma Heights. So there have been there's at least been one murder up there in the last 10 years because it happened on my friend's property. And there was another incident where there was probably a murder up there and they dumped the body on Cheyenne Boulevard and 21st Street. 8th Street. So if you want some statistics about serious crime, those are 2 examples.
So I think the comment was dumping of bodies up off Old Stage Road, and I have heard that as well. So Allison in the back.
Hello, my name is Kurt Schroeder. I was invited by Mr. Storm. And the reason being, I worked for City of Colorado Springs Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services for 23 years. I'm recently retired. I highly recommend it. But just maybe to help your thought process and the discussion that you're going to have as it relates to this, many of you may know that we have gated and closed in the evenings many of our parks. The first one we did was Palmer Park. Garden of the Gods followed soon thereafter, then North Cheyenne came in, and some other smaller parks where we had parking lots, and we were experiencing the exact same list, which I was, wow, I could have written that list as far as the issues that we were seeing in our parks. Fire was a huge one. Palmer Park, we originally gated it back in 2001, 2002. If you all remember, that's when we had our first drought, and there was significant concern about fire. Each of those parks that are recently was a little different. Fire was always a concern. Noise and after-hours use were concerns. Garden of the Gods was racing primarily. We didn't have too much fire threat. We felt in Garden of the Gods, although the year before we closed Garden of the Gods, we had 60 vehicles towed out of Garden of the Gods because of accidents. And that was because of racing and or hitting animals late at night in the early mornings. Anecdotally, I can tell you, well, let me talk about North Cheyenne Canyon. We have multiple jurisdictions we have to deal with. I don't know if you know, but actually Gold Camp Road, there's a license agreement with the U.S. Forest Service. It's their road to maintain, so we have to work that out, as well as access on Captain Jack's up into the National Forest. We also have a in-holding at North Cheyenne Canyonwood, with about 12 different residents. We had to work something out with them. So I looked at your challenge list, and I could have written that as well. But what I would share with you is that it's not insurmountable. If that's a direction that you want to go, it takes a little time. With North Cheyenne Canyon, we do have an automatic gate on one end down by the Starsmore Discovery Center. They can come and go. They have a keypad they can punch into. If someone's in the park after hours and it's closed, they can get out that direction. All of our gates, in all of our other parks, there are manually closed gates. We had a security service come, sweep the park, move people out, lock the gate behind them. All the gates have Knox boxes so that fire can get in whenever they need to. So from our experience and anecdotally, if you were to talk to the residents of Canyonwood, if you were to talk to the residents on Gold Camp Road leading up to North Cheyenne Canyon Park, if you talk to the residents who live off of Ridge Road, which got most of the noise from all the activities, they would, I had a lady crying to me on the phone, thanking the department, because now she can sleep peacefully at night, doesn't have to worry about those things.
Kurt, I don't know if you mentioned it, I missed it, but is there a time period, the gates that you mentioned, when are they closed and open?
Yeah, they are commensurate with the hours of the parks, which makes it a little easier for the parks department. Not for me anymore, but 5 o'clock in the morning they get open, 6 o'clock. And then during the summer hours, things close at 10 p.m. Winter hours, it's 9 p.m. They get closed.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Cassie.
Hi, my name is JD Marshall. I have an Instagram, email JK, and I write for a website, trailsoffroad.com. Real quick to that point, yes, it may have worked for the parks, but those are parks. We are not closing access to the road, specifically actually Rampart Range Road, which dumps out in Garden of the Gods, had to be gated especially so that they could close the park without closing access to that road. Same thing here, you can't close access to that road. My question would be specific to, is banning recreational shooting an option for you at this point? If that's the majority of your complaints and the majority of the issues that work in places like Mount Herman Road, where they had a number of close calls out that way up until 2014 where they banned recreational shooting in the area. They haven't had a problem since.
Well, I am the city traffic agent, and that is not my call. But that would be something, as you saw from the map earlier, in some of those sections, El Paso County, they have control over use of that road, so that would be something I'll take back to El Paso County as an option.
My name is Ron Muller. I'm a member of Colorado Christians Four-Wheelers, and we go out twice a year and clean up Old State Road and Dugan Road. I will tell you, I really don't see how a gate's going to prevent the shooting, because the people who are going to shoot, they're going to come in the other way. And if they spend the night, and is it the nighttime shooting we're worried about? Because during the daytime, that's perfectly legal. as far as shooting. I go out and shoot myself. However, I may get minority of this, and I put down a blanket, whatever, and catch my grass and put it in a bucket. If you can have some trash cans or something like that, you know, built-in beer-proof trash cans, whatever, all by the shooting ranges, because the shooting you're hearing, you know, that goes for a long ways, especially if somebody's firing, you know, a 300 or 333 or something. You know, it's I don't. There's no ranges I know of that's on the state road itself. Once you get the gold camp over, yes. So that's.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. Good comment.
Cassie, do you have one on that side of the room? She's got really high heels, so it takes her a long time to get over that.
Hi there. I'm just curious where your traffic data comes from and how it's collected.
Great question. We, the way we collect the traffic data, the city subscribes to a service called Streetlight, and Streetlight pulls cell phone. The reason I can get sort of yearly data is they pull cell phone data from people who are on, you know, and they gather cell phone data all over the city, and they use that data to make estimates of traffic volumes on these roadways. And so that's the source of my data.
Over here. And let me remind you, please, if we could refrain from the clapping. I know it's hard, but as you support what the people saying, but it really will help to keep the meeting moving along. Yes, sir.
My name is John Patrick Michael Murphy. My wife and I have lived 4 blocks from the end of the pavement by road and 2 blocks in a straight line. And I helped Dr. Conti with his book, The Old Stage Road, back in the 80s. I ride my e-bike up there constantly. I used to ride my Ritchie up there before e-bikes were invented. And I think there's one question I have and a few comments. The first is, since the main concerns are fireworks, campfires, overnight parking and camping, criminal activity, illegal shooting, vandalism, trash, litter, and illegal dumping. All of those are crimes. I want to know if you invited any of the command of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office here tonight, and if not, why not?
So I can jump in on that one. We did reach out to El Paso County Sheriff, to the Colorado Springs Police, to the Colorado Springs Fire Department, the Broadmoor Fire Department, and the Forest Service. And some are here tonight, and some have acknowledged that they want to continue to stay informed, but they were not able to make it. So some preliminary conversations with them all, and then what we've said is the city is going to circle back with them after all this input. So yes, to answer your question, but good comment.
The one thing that hasn't been mentioned, that I think should be mentioned, is the location of the gate. And it's at a perfect location. If you put it up where the pavement ends, you are interfering with fire protection. I can give you examples, and I have pictures of people taking illegal and legal quads that they bring up there on trailers. They park them right in front of Shelley Mason and her sister's property, which is the road that starts right, or their driveway. Actually, it's an El Paso County road, and then it becomes their driveway. They block it. And you need wide range. You can't take a tight turn with a large fire truck. They have blocked that. A bus trying to get to Bear Trap Ranch could not make it because of all the vehicles and trailers that park in the area that should be used for driving large vehicles.
We're capturing that, so keep those comments and ideas coming. So we talked about the location is important. If there's going to be any kind of an access considered, where might that be? And as Todd said, that's one of the concerns expressed, the challenges expressed.
I'm of the understanding that I've measured it from the end of the pavement to the county line. It's 9 miles or less. And I'm of the understanding that our current sheriff claims that they don't have the personnel to take care of that property. 2 bodies were found up there just in the month of June in El Paso County territory. I think that today I rode my e-bike to Victor and back. Coming on at the beginning of the Old Stage Road, or the Gold Camp Road, out of Victor, was a patrol car from Teller County Sheriff. A little farther along by Cathedral Park, a pickup truck, Teller County Sheriff. I'm personally aware that from the time of Norm Short, Earl L. Sullivan, and many other sheriffs, Red Hayes, all of those sheriffs patrolled the Old Stage Road. I've been going up there since we've lived there in my car or by bike, and now I'm up there 4 to 5 times a week on my e-bike. The Teller County Sheriff says 60% of the problems that he has on the Gold Camp Road are Fort Carson soldiers. They're the ones doing the shooting, the illegal campfires, the problems. Why can't we deal with Fort Carson too? Ask Fort Carson. A friend of mine gave a speech at Fort Carson welcoming a new brigade, and he was, part of his speech said, please be respectful of our roads. Please don't be shooting your guns all over the place. He was chastised by a major under the directions of a general for saying such a thing. I think we need Fort Carson here, and along with command-level sheriffs in this audience telling us why he can't patrol 9 miles of road.
Thank you so much. Great input, and I will add to that we did also reach out and are keeping Fort Carson in the loop and informed because we did recognize that. We heard from a couple people that there's some, concerns there, and there's some communication that needs to take place. So they are very much part of this conversation as well. So, Cassie.
Yes, Stephen Simpson, I want to echo what John said as well. I live very close to him. Some of the concerns that I have is I still don't feel like you've adequately addressed the evacuation due to fire. I don't see any sort of plans or what you would do in that instance or how it would be accessed. Otherwise, if you have emergencies with people that are camping up on the mountain and they need to get down to a hospital, they're going to come to a shut gate that you're going to have to call somebody to come and open. Also, as well, if there's any sort of other emergency that require those residents to use Old Stage in the middle of the night, we have to call some sort of a county personnel and wait for them to come and access it. If a fire starts close to our area and we need to get out fast, we've got to sit and wait. And I really don't feel like you've addressed that very much.
Thank you. So I will say that none of those details have been sorted out yet. That's why we're starting here. But what I did hear Todd say is that if there were to be a gate explored further, coming out is never a problem. It's like any gated community that we have in our city that you can get out at any time. The gate opens up when you pull up to it. It's heading up into at certain times. But I don't know, Todd, have you had a chance to explore any more details on how a smart activated situation works?
No, I have not, because the purpose of the meeting is just to hear comments like that and input like that, and that's great. That's great comments. We're taking all that in. No decisions have been made, and that's taking that. We want to hear that input. That's good input. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Vicki Agamick. I own property on Old Stage Road, and as far as the shooting goes, people don't realize that it's a residential area, and they shoot all along where our properties are and our children play. Several times I've come to my land and found people there that challenged my ownership and refused to leave. That was many years ago, but I did call the sheriff's office on that, and they said, well, we have no way to patrol it and no way to prove who's right or wrong when these situations come about. People will pull into the land. They've broken down my gate many times. I finally quit putting it up, and somebody put some stuffs in there for me. but they start campfires and they shoot. They have the clay pigeons set up. I found tons of those broken everywhere. Again, this is my private property that people are using to shoot multiple times. And the fire danger is great, much less confronting these people and asking them to leave is a problem for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for those comments.
Cassie.
First of all, ma'am, the lady who just spoke, I do apologize for the people who do come on your property. That is not right. That is your property. You own it. They have no right to be there shooting. There are areas there where you are permitted to shoot, which I do not see a problem with, because as long as you are a safe firearm owner and you are shooting into a solid backstop, it should not cause an issue. What I do have an issue with is a lot of people leave their trash behind, which is not okay. This is public land, this is forest land, this is for everybody, and people are going to get it shut down for people like me, who have actually hauled over 300 truckloads of trash off of that mountain personally by myself. I just have a couple points to make. I will be very quick. First of all, cell phone data. You said that was a rough estimate. That's an estimation, correct? That is not a solid number? That's an estimate?
Yeah, we did not put cameras up, yes, so it is an estimate.
Okay. Do you leave your house without your cell phone ever?
No.
Would you suspect somebody that is hiking up the mountain is going to leave their cell phone behind, or would you suspect that a lot of that number is going to be foot traffic as well and bicycle traffic?
I didn't say it was only vehicle traffic. I said these are the total traffic numbers that, based on that service that we use.
Okay, so you're talking people, vehicles.
It could be bikes, it could be people, it could be cars.
Okay, a point was made that there's a lot of kids up there using illegal drugs and drinking. That seems like more of a parenting issue to me, and I don't think a gate is going to solve poor parenting. Couple more points, and I will pass the mic to somebody else. Police can issue citations up there. I have been contacted by police on many occasions, as well as Forest Service. I go up there to shoot, wheel, ride, hunt, fish, all the above. I'm very respectful of the land. I follow the speed limit on the road. I'm safe to not only myself, but others around me. And if everybody could share that same likelihood, that same mentality, then that would take care of a lot of your safety issues. Can anybody tell me when the last forest fire in that area was? Because that seems to be one of the primary concerns. I'm up there on a regular basis and I do not see any burned trees or scarring. Yes, sir?
There were 3 last year during the fire season.
Okay.
2 shooting related and 1 light.
Okay, and I was just asking on that. Thank you, sir, for the clarification. I appreciate it. If that is an issue, maybe we need to limit camping fires and things like that. Maybe limit things like incendiary rounds and things like that that can cause fires, or also known as tracers. And then another thing is, tannerite. I know there's no tannerite on the mountain. I respect that. I follow that law. Tannerite can cause fires. I understand that. But that doesn't mean everybody is following that law, rule, or regulation.
Yeah, good comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very much.
Thank you so much. Allison up front.
Hi, I'm Dolly Ross. I just wondered if it has been considered, because I'm hearing a lot of comments that access is important, and that the 9 to 3 time period is a critical time period. Has it been considered to limit parking in certain areas and issue citations for parking? Because the only way you can do those things is by disappearing from your car. So if you park during certain times, 9 to 3, in areas where there are problems, has that been considered?
Well, that's a great idea. I mean, we do put up, in the city, we do put up parking restrictions, and that can be used as a tool to sort of control some activity. But that's a great suggestion. We'll add it to our list of options and ideas. But yeah, that is certainly a tool that can be applied.
And I have to say, there's so many good ideas, and there's no one answer at this point. I mean, there is no predetermined decision. It's really, and it could be it's going to require a combination. Start with this, then add that, then try that. That's just the reality. So yes, Cassie.
Yes, my name is Jim Heron. I'm one of those residents up in Canyonwood. And the first year I lived up there, it was a disaster. Shooting, my house was hit, my neighbor's house was hit, his car was hit once, and another neighbor's was hit once. It was so hard to get the police up there because we're far out. And that's the problem with Old Stage and Gold Camp. Same thing, response times are terrible. The person who's doing that stuff is usually gone by the time they get there. So it's almost a waste of their time to drive out. The gates have been a godsend. The shooting is almost eliminated. That by far, I literally had to drag my wife out of her bed at night twice in that first year to hide her so that we didn't get shot. So I get where you're coming from Gold Camp, but the gate is the smartest thing I've seen yet to prevent having to have cops continually patrolling, because I get where they're coming from too. They're out of town. They're not doing other things. So strongly look at that. Fire department looked real well, came up and met with us. The city met with us to make sure we understood how the gates work. We have codes to get in and out. We have an extra gate, get out if we have to, emergency four-wheel drive type gate. There's ways to make that work. I agree. The Teller County side is a different issue altogether that needs to be looked at hard. But if the last resort is a gate, it does work.
Thank you for your comments. And as Lisa said, there's, all of these comments, there is, and I like what you said about last resort, is that there could be a smorgasbord or an incremental approach to dealing with some of the issues and concerns that exist along Old Stage Road. But I didn't catch the first part. You said you were on Gold Camp? You live on?
Canyonwood.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to say we really appreciate how respectful everybody's being. As you are starting to see, there are a lot of different opinions all over the place. And so just continuing on with respectfully appreciating different points of view. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Tammy and live minutes from Old Stage. I work on Old Stage, native to Colorado Springs. I've been dealing with this with years. And I've met with the Forest Service, and they say they, one gentleman, I think they're up to 3 now, but cover 1 million acres. And his recommendation to us was if you see something, he actually needs video, license plate numbers, names of people. And like one of the ladies mentioned, you try approaching these people when they're drunk, shooting. We've had bullets go by us, at our animals, and to present what we need to the Forest Service, again, by the time they get there, and there's not a lot they can do. We've actually had people from the department come out, and there's bullet casings everywhere. The gentlemen are standing right there, and they're like, well, what knows? So he's like, I can't do anything.
Thank you. And so I think we heard earlier in some of the emails that we got monitoring and video, and so you add to that by taking personal videos. Exactly. So using your cell phones and taking videos.
Hi, my name's Rachel, and I'm a resident of Old Stage, and to second what a lot of other people in the area said, we as a family have been in fear of bullets going through where we live. We have multiple times, you say there's 30 or so calls in the past 6 years. Our family is probably responsible for 20 of those in the past 4 years. I have El Paso County Sheriff Department on speed dial because of the shootings happening so frequently, and so I can make sure I can report it quickly. But just like what other citizens have been saying, it's dangerous to try to go out and get that information. There's times where I have just been like, okay, I got to do this on my own because the sheriff won't come out. They're understaffed. They say that there's nothing they can do, and it's really hard as a mom to explain that to your kids when there's bullets flying through your front yard and the county and the police force is saying there's nothing they can do. And so I see this as a lack of funding for the police, actually, and a lack of funding for the whole area because they say, oh, we're understaffed, there's nothing we can do, you're on your own. And so majority of the shootings have been a concern for us because we live there, we have young children there. And I also think education is a huge issue too, where maybe to give citizens the benefit of the doubt, they don't realize that that first several mile stretch of Old Stage Road is all private property. It's all resident owned. People live there. And so I know I've emailed you multiple times and we've talked back and forth about things with getting more signs up. I would like to think education would be a great first step with getting signs up, even though I have seen signs be a target, but maybe we can give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't realize they're firing into people's front yards. So then that's been a big issue for us. And then the lack of response and just being a resident out there for so long. We've seen cars parked on the side of the road. We've seen people hiking and camping and just being completely disrespectful to the forest, trash everywhere. And so I come at this not knowing the right solution. I find it very comforting to hear how gates work from other people that have been through this exact same situation, and they're like, gates work, we've been where you are and gates work. So I find that very comforting, but I also love nature, and I don't want to restrict public access. I just want to make it better, and I've been one of the suggestions that maybe we can make access even better by paving the roads, putting up metal guardrails, making it safer. If the police can't come out, put up security cameras all along the road so I don't have to run out there and approach drunk or drive-by shootings, because I can see my lot is up pretty far up above Old Stage Road, and I can see Old Stage Road. People are firing out of their cars. They're driving and they're firing out of their cars just aimlessly into people's front yards. And I would like to believe they don't realize it's people's front yards, but maybe they do realize it, and if they do, they need to be prosecuted, and consequences have to be made, otherwise behavior is not going to change.
You know, good comments, and as I said before, that you know, some of the first steps might be additional signage, just to educate and inform people. Hey, there are private residences. This is not a good place to shoot. I think to address sort of the law enforcement that we've heard a lot, that it's going to, in some ways, you hear the sheriff says, well, it's too far away from us, and PDs and Colorado Springs PD say we don't have enough resources. Forest Service says it would be great to have additional officers out there. So I think it's going to, if there's going to be increased enforcement, it's got to be sort of all of those different agencies sort of coming together and figuring out a way to provide that additional education or that additional enforcement out there. And so it's good to hear all of these comments, but I think those are some of the things that are going through my mind as I hear these comments.
Great input. I know there's always a funding challenge with anything we come up with, but it sounded like the more different things we try, maybe one of them will stick, or maybe it'll take 2 or 3 of them before something sticks. But we've got to try something. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Deborah Chan, and I have a residence about 3 miles up off of Old Stage Road after it turns into the dirt park. And I've had that residence probably for about 20 years, so I do drive that road regularly. I've driven that road regularly at night. I've driven it regularly pre-dawn. And in addition to the list of things that you had, I have also seen a tremendous amount of open toileting in the mornings and the pre-dawn hours. And I have a bit of a public health background, so that is of course concerning. Also from my background, I know that when it comes to road and traffic safety, that a small change in a built environment is more likely to have a desired effect than additional patrolling, which is why we don't have policemen patrolling our streets for traffic violations. We have stop signs and we have red lights to let people know what they can and cannot do. I know that the people in this room are probably very passionate about whichever side of the issue they're on, but the first I heard about it was the gate for a dusk till dawn or late night to early morning. And I think that there was kind of a misconception in the public, maybe not in this room, but there seemed to be a misconception that the proposal was to completely gate and close Old Stage Road. And I do support allowing access for recreational use for law-abiding citizens. And I mean any kind of recreational use, which does include shooting or hunting or fishing. And, but I do not support questionable activities, especially the ones that occur after dark. And I think that the more you drive that road, the more likely you're going to see these activities, and I see them on a regular basis. So just out of curiosity, I would like to know how many people in this room drive that road regularly, and by that I mean more than once a week. And then I'd like to see how many people drive that road regularly after dark or before dawn. And so I think that the people who do that are the ones who are most likely to know what is going on that road. If people are there occasionally for recreation, once a month or several times a year, you may not see what goes on. But the ones of us who do drive that road, we do see it and we're concerned. And it doesn't really matter if there was a small fire or somebody has a campfire. It only takes one large uncontrolled campfire to burn down the whole forest as well as Skyway and Broadmoor.
Yes, and again, what I saw as the common thread was concern about wildfires and what could happen from some of this activity. So thank you for your input and insights as a property owner there. Cass, oh, in the back. We have to hold it for you, Richard.
It's okay, no, that's fine. I'm used to carrying the microphone myself. I'm Richard Scorman. I was on city council until pretty recently, maybe a lot of you know, and I represented District 3, which borders Old Stage Road, and you can blame me for bringing up this idea of the gate. I think I'm one of the people originally that thought it should happen because of all the complaints I heard. And they were a lot from county residents because the people in the city weren't experiencing quite the same, but a lot from the city as well. The people that live near there were struggling with the people that were coming up and partying late at night. And I can hear it. I live pretty close to that area that we're talking about, and I just hear the loud mufflers, and I hear the partying, and we see the graffiti at the top of Strawberry Fields, and it's not an issue that is one that I took lightly because I love national forests and I love camping, and I want everybody to have freedom and access. The reason I brought up the gate was I thought, why do people have to have that access at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, going up into it? If they want to recreate and camp and be up there, they could go up a little bit early. And the reason I brought Kurt Schroeder with me tonight is because I saw what the difference was when we put the gate on North Cheyenne Canyon. And we've had some people talk about it. And I also know that it was always very difficult to get the county and the sheriffs to be involved with even areas like Lower Gold Camp Road and High Drive, which were not really even in the city. And police response times are increasing as we grow in population. Are we going to have good patrolling up there at all times? I'm not sure. I really don't think we're going to get to that point where there's going to be that funding. So yes, I thought maybe people would give up having to go in there at 11 or 12 at night, one way. Maybe that would be a compromise, because you have to go up there and recreate, or maybe just on the weekends. Maybe it could be Friday, Saturday nights, where that's when the majority of the trouble could happen. But in my mind, the other side was hearing from the residents that live up there, that have kids, that are worried about it. And yes, fire. And I'll tell you that I lay in bed and worry about it every night, because we're a disaster waiting to happen. We have not mitigated that forest area at all. Gold Camp Road area, the areas all around Cheyenne Canyon even. The city's done some. We have some new money for it. But the reality is we have a lot of dead trees, tussock moth, it's been a big problem up there. We have a lot of other areas that are going to have very little access. So imagine a big fire coming down those canyons, and by the way, it comes down canyons. And then you have to evacuate the Broadmoor and the zoo and all the people that live in that area on Cresta and Lake Avenue with the circles. What are we going to do to do everything we can to be as careful as we can to not have that happen? One thing I think is we can't patrol it. Let's try to protect it at least for late hours in the night. Maybe that's a sacrifice we can all give up. I know you like to shoot, but you have to do it at 1 or 2 in the morning on Saturday night.
From a man who's probably had a lot of public input over the years, so thank you for all your service to our community, Richard. And so one of the things I'm hearing is lack of understanding of a gate. People hear a gate and think 24-hour, you can't get there. And I think what I've heard is they're going to look at how do other areas do it, where there's a controlled access gate where you can get out anytime, limited access on certain hours, way into the wee hours of the night getting in. But there's, like I know, there's a code, like you get a code if you're a visitor coming to visit a resident. You've got a code you can get in, and there's ways you can get in at any time if you're going for legitimate purposes. But I know nothing about smart gates, so go on the record. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Leroy. I'm here to represent Bear Trap Ranch. All good points so far. Personally, I won't speak for anyone else here. Personally, I don't have any issue with people having hobbies and shooting and driving and four-wheeling. It's when those hobbies start to interfere with other people's safety. This is call it an anecdote. 2 nights ago, myself and my manager, my boss, had to chase off an active shooter. 40, 50, 60 yards from our camp. Old Stage Road goes over the top of the valley where Bear Trap Ranch is. Bear Trap Ranch is 7 miles up Old Stage Road. And this person had stopped at the base of Devil's Slide. It's a big sheet of granite hanging off the side of the mountain. And had started firing his .45 off the side of the mountain over our valley, where we currently, right now, as I'm speaking, have 60 guests. Families, kids. This particular group is a group of foster fathers. But regularly we have families, guests, children. And this has happened twice in the last 2 months, where myself and my boss have had to go chase off active shooters. Last fall, we had a deranged man come to camp and actually assault my boss and our guest services manager. It took 40 minutes for the sheriff to arrive. Personally, I kept that man busy for 40 minutes while we waited for the sheriff to arrive. But that's 40 minutes out, and that's the sheriff. The fire department, those big old trucks, are not getting up that mountain in 40 minutes. The gate, a keyed entry on the way in, motion sensor on the way out. Can't speak to Teller County side, but most of the problems come up from the bottom of the mountain. They come from the springs. Most of the people I see coming down from Teller County are lost tourists who took a wrong turn and they didn't know what they were in for. Fishing, hunting, camping, it's all great. Hiking. We have free trailheads on our property that we regularly get calls ahead of time. People come up and they hike Mount Vigil, they hike San Luis. And then they'll ask to park at our parking lot, and then they'll go walk to Rosemont Reservoir. All of these things are great, but at 9 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, really?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good comments. Yes, Cassie.
Tim Hoyles with the Maverick Observer. If I could say, and I'm not trying to disparage city, but it was premature to do this presentation without actual numbers from law enforcement, if that is one of your issues. The other thing is a glaring omission. That road is in a WUI. If you don't know what a WUI is, it's a wildland-urban interface. I happen to know a little bit about fire evacuation because I hired the experts who spoke in front of City Council. When you study the California fires, they would tell you, unfortunately, for all you people who like the gate, it's one of the absolute worst things you can do if there is a fire. I can't speak to the shooting thing. I'm a shooter. Would I go up there and shoot? Personally, I would not. I mean, I don't know how many more people are living up there than were living up there 10 years ago, but I assume quite a few. And if you guys are having to dodge bullets, the city and county need to know it. And the other thing I would recommend, what we found out in where we live in Colorado Springs, we have to spend our own money for a security service because the police and sheriff are overrun. I'm concerned about how the county and the city are budgeting for our protective services. And I think we all need to say, let's have a major discussion on how this should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Where are we? We're over here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Dana Dugan. I live about 100 yards from Party Rock and have for about 18 years. And I can hear when things are happening there, and it's just been very quiet. So there's a disconnect here for me. I also, Tim hired the guys that came in. I found them. I've done the evacuation modeling. He's absolutely right. Egress is so critical. So those people that are living along there, and who knows, I might need to go in that direction. So, and I do think it's really curious that there is no data that precedes this decision. Like, it seems like if there's this kind of crime going on, you guys should have numbers, you know? And so I would just recommend that we make data-driven decisions.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana, good comment. And just to reiterate, there has been no decision made. We're still taking public input, still collecting data. So I just want to be clear.
I didn't know if you heard earlier on, but that there is a lot of data being looked at and a lot to be collected. This is, I always believe you start with the people though. What are the people's concerns and thoughts and go from there. So that's where we're at. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Megan Spiller. I live full-time about 3 miles up the dirt road. Todd, I've talked to you a lot. Obviously the shooting is probably number one, is the scariest thing. My husband and myself are 2.5 boys living up there. But one of the issues that I have personally had a lot of problems with is the camping, if you want to call it camping, on the side of the road. A personal story for me is I have actually, it was probably about 9:30 at night, there was a car horizontal in the road that stopped me from being able to drive up, and 5 men circled my car when I had my kids in the car, and I didn't roll my window down or anything, but they were asking me where I was going, how I lived up there, all of those things, and I got so nervous to the point where I actually had to drive my Jeep up on the side of the mountain to get away. They got in their car and started to follow me. Luckily, I know the road pretty well, so I was able to zip on back there, and our community has a gate. So I was able to get through my gate, have it shut, and make sure that they didn't find where I went, and they went right past me. So along with the shooting, the illegal camping at night is very scary. There are a lot of vehicles, I have pictures of all of them, that are pretty consistently there. And they seem to just move their vehicles around every little bit, and they are gone by the time I'm taking my kids to school in the morning. But when we are coming home at night, they are there. So sometimes they get there before 9 p.m., but I feel like along with the shooting and issues like that where we don't have cell service, and we've been told that you cannot call 911 if you're not in immediate danger. So we have to call the non-emergency line. So I usually have to get all the way home before I can get cell signal to call. So it's just, yeah, it's being able to get the police up there in a timely manner, patrols, the camping, I know if we have patrols, that camping would stop. Signage, no parking, no camping, I mean, something as simple as that, I think would make a huge dent in those issues that we're having up there along with the shooting.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Great. I want to do a quick commercial message and thank Monica for typing back there. You know, she's not a court reporter, and so she's doing her best to keep up. We will, as I said, go back and correct misspellings. If you feel like something you've seen up there isn't quite right, fill it out in the comment form and leave it if we didn't get it quite right, but we're trying our best to capture it all. So, yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jim Johnson with Elk Ranch, and my family's been using the road for 93 years to get back and forth to our ranch in Teller County. I want to give you some good news about Teller County. Teller County put on 2 full-time sheriffs to patrol the east part of the county. When they first started confronting people at the gun sites, and I'm pro-shooting, by the way, 40% of the shooters were felons. 40%. It's illegal to have guns if you're a felon. Down to 5% now. The other linkage that we need to talk about, the reason that shooting is so important, that the Forest Service says that up to 40% of forest fires are caused by shooting. So it's not just a public safety issue, it's going to start the next forest fire. Like I said, last year, of the 3 fires I know about, 1 was lightning, 2 were shooting. And they were fairly significant, 3 to 5 acres. So we got them, but they weren't windy days, we were lucky. So, second thing, I want to talk, I'm concerned about, well, one reason about the police statistics, there's no law enforcement on the El Paso County side. I mean none. I never see law enforcement there. So there's no statistics. We call a lot and then we just give up because there's no law enforcement. I'll tell you, Santiago Marquez, who's the Teller County Sheriff, there's a lot of crime on the Teller County side, but they have dramatically decreased in the last 2 years since we've had those full-time sheriffs there. So I think we need, the gates, maybe a method, but law enforcement's really critical also, really necessary. The last thing I want to mention is parking. I'm very concerned that we're going to push the partying down into the Broadmoor community from that gate, so that what would the parking enforcement be? I know that some of the citizens on Upper Gold Camp have had a lot of issues with people blocking their driveways with beer cans, trash, and the like left, Sunday morning after the gates close Saturday night. So we need to have some sort of enforcement if there is a gate put in there, so that those citizens and the neighbors don't suffer that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
Where are we? Oh, here, Cassie. And we still have, I guess, about 5-10 minutes to go. Yeah, about 10 more minutes to go. So again, if we don't get to your question for any reason, please fill out the comment form. Cassie.
My name is Cameron Davis, and I'm Nova. The big concerns here seem to be trash, shooting, and crime. I would just simply point out that those seem to be big concerns everywhere, at every street, at every corner, people parking in front of fire hydrants or too close to corners. It seems like we're looking for people to blame or trying to segregate. I would just suggest that the problem is us, everybody. I don't know that there's any difference between residents of Old Stage, Colorado Springs, Teller. I would suggest that we're all residents of both or all, and don't want to see gates anywhere or everywhere. I just hope that we can look at ourselves and find a solution. Go from there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is James Perry, and first I appreciate you taking the effort to gather this input. One question I have, if this is El Paso County and Forest Service jurisdiction, how did the project fall to the city?
Good question. Good question. You might have missed his introduction where he talked about all the jurisdictions.
Yes, good question. The county came to the city and asked us to explore the possibility of dealing with some of the issues on Old Stage Road. Particularly, I think they first mentioned the gate idea, and so I got the lucky task of leading that effort. So that's how that kind of came about. It was sort of county-city coordination.
Somebody has a ring, and they're getting a lot of activity at their house right now. Yes, Cassie.
Yeah. Oh. So the actions of a few are having consequences for the majority. Every issue mentioned here is already illegal to do. This is public access land. Many times I've taken data up there just because there's nowhere else to go in the city at night. Many times I've gone up there with my friends late at night, going four-wheeling or...
Sir, can I ask you to please just slow down a little bit so that...
Sorry, public speaking, a little
so
nervous.
she can capture your comments. Thank you.
Okay. For a multitude of reasons, be it late night camping because a friend got off late at work, or we're going four-wheeling late at night because that's when we have time to do it. Those of us who obey the law and are following the rules should not sacrifice our freedom and enjoyment of public land because there are those who do not. Preventing crime should not be done off the back of honest citizens who want to enjoy the nature that is there near to them. We need to educate people as to where they can legally shoot and have more officials giving out citations to the people who are ruining this beautiful area. The people doing illegal things are being concentrated on Old Stage due to other areas being closed. I have a feeling this meeting is for show and you will do what you want.
Okay, so you have a lot of great ideas. Could I ask you to email all that to the email address that we had at the beginning of the presentation, and we'll put it up again at the end so that we don't lose any of that, because you have a lot of energy. We want to capture it. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael McBee. I'm a Colorado native. I've been going up Old State Road since 1979, before most of your homes were built and before most of you lived there. And I want to tell you first and foremost, I'm very sorry for what's happening in your neighborhood. When that stuff happens in my neighborhood, we call the police and the police show up. You deserve to have police protection. I'm a gun holder. I'm a gun shooter, I'm a fisherman, I'm a camper. I've been camping up there since I was 17, 16 years old. I was up there, dust on my truck right now from being up there 2 weeks ago. I don't want to go through a gate. I recreate, I professionally go up there and recover stuck vehicles. I want to be able to go up there when I want to. If you want to fix it, you fix it by how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Colorado Springs has many shooting ranges across the city. We don't need one in your effing neighborhood. You don't need the guns up there. Put it illegal as hell. We'll confiscate your guns. We'll fine you for every bullet you fire. Hire one person. We used to have a gentleman that we called him One-Eyed Pete. He didn't have no law enforcement, but when we did something wrong, he'd write us a ticket, reprimand us. I got caught on the side of a hill rescuing 3 girls one time. He wrote me he was going to write me a ticket. I said, Pete, I'm up here rescuing people all the time. You know what he told me for being off the road? No good deed goes unpunished. That's what he told me. I went ahead and rescued him. He made him erase all the tracks and everything. I'm sorry about all the people that want to go up there and blast your brass. Mow down my trees. Stop it. Stop letting them. That's what you do. You make it illegal to shoot, you've shut off 60% of the traffic. You start confiscating guns, like he said, 60% of the people up there are doing it illegally. You take a picture of them, they point their guns at you. I can't even let my 2 dogs out of the car anymore. I took my grandson up there to the little creek on the way to Frosty Park. They were shooting all up and down the hill. I had to put him in a truck. I wanted to tell him to keep his head down. But I didn't, because I don't want him to be afraid of my woods. And I don't want you guys to be afraid of your homes. So please, make it illegal to shoot up there. That's simple. That's 60%. If they can't shoot, they're not going to go.
Thank you,
These
sir.
military boys are mowing down our forests with their AK-47s. I want an AK-47, but I ain't shooting no trees. And I ain't shooting in your backyard either.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. I love the passion.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
That was-
That's
that
okay.
was- I
That's
love
all
it.
right.
I love it.
It makes an interesting meeting, that's okay.
I just wanted to say that after listening to everybody's comments today, the through line for me seems to be shooting and lack of law enforcement. So I'm not entirely sure why we're having a conversation about a gate when we should be having a conversation about those two subjects.
Thank you. Yes, and we've heard a lot of different things tonight, and again, we're going to take it all in and look at all the possibilities. Yes, sir.
My name is Jay Gupta. I have lived out there on Old Stage Road since 1995, August. I've lived there full time. I've driven all times of the day. Most of the time, because of a professional job, I've come late in the evenings and I've seen all kinds of things. I have called personally to the non-emergency sheriff department more than a dozen times about the fires. The fires were going on, and the hardest thing is that they would ask you, what is the intersection? What are the signs? And I'm trying, how high is the flame? What color is the flame? So I'm trying to answer all those things, and I'm saying, ma'am, there's no intersection here. Then I'm talking about the mountain road. So the only point I'm making is this, that I've personally called more than a dozen times the fires that I've seen going on. I've seen cars that were stranded, people get sort of slipped off the road, and next morning the cars are demolished. The windows broken. So there have been many occasions where, again, these people just could not take their car home. They got to stop. And next day the car was broken. I've also seen many times where signs are being shot at. I've seen people, one time the lady was walking in on our driveway. I said, can I help you? And I didn't get any answer. I remember that I had just passed a car with the car's doors were all left open. So I said, let me go drive back there. So when I drove back there, I found the sheriff. And they said, I said, I'm just coming to find out if you're looking for a lady. She's walking on my driveway. And they said, yes, we are looking. And she was out there to commit suicide. So there are all kinds of things that we have seen in the last 47 years that I've lived there personally. And I don't like to, keep people out, those who are coming for joy. We also have looked through the gate. In 2013, the floods, make impossible to drive us on the road, so they had to put a gate. We all residents and everybody else, we were given the code. We would come up and down, we would open the gate, and then we close the gate. In an occasional time when there was an emergency, they will call, there was a phone number for Broadmoor security. They will come up and help out. So I'm saying the gate has been there and has been used when a time there was a need for it. So gate is not an impossible thing to be done. It has been done, it has accomplished the purpose, and if we do it right, I think it can be done again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments.
So we're past our time limit. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the meeting. I'm going to give Monica just a second to save her file and then put the PowerPoint back out because I want you to see the last slide because it does have some information for you. And while she's doing that, I want to thank you all. This is not an easy conversation, but you all have been very respectful and listened to each other's concerns, and there are many and many different opinions. So the hard part now for us is taking this all in, looking at the data that's out there, trying to put everything together. Please put your email address out front. If you don't have email for whatever reason, that's fine. Give us another way to communicate with you, and we will do that. So these are the next steps. We're going to pull everything together, provide it to the city. The city's going to continue conducting analysis, and then we will give feedback back out to you all. And the last slide, we have listed the email address for City Traffic Engineering, their phone number. This PowerPoint is on the website, which is listed up here. Again, you have comment forms or a QR code. All the same information is on the city website.